Thank you for joining us at Toy Fair University. Next up, we have New Licensees and What to Expect with Greg Pan from Nolan Heimann LLP. Greg?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for Toy Fair University for hosting these events. It's great to share knowledge about our respective industries and learn, get a little bit smarter and better at what we do. So today, what we are going to be talking about is licensing. Ideally, if you're a toy company and you want to seek licenses from brands, trademarks, characters to help grow your business, this is for you. I'm going to talk about it. Let's get into it. My name is Greg Pan. I am an attorney for the firm Nolan Heimann. I do a lot of licensing. I started off my career at Marvel Entertainment. I worked there for about 12 years. I did all the consumer products deals when I was there. I got a lot of licensing experience. It was great. I now represent a lot of licensees in the space, toys, fashion, apparel, you name it, and let's get into it. Let's talk about licensing. Okay, why are we here? Why do we license? We're here to make babies. That's right, people. We are making babies. We are taking the DNA of what you are good at, making toys, designs, audience, supply chain, getting to the price point that the customer can afford. You are really good at that. That's why we're all here today. You're good at making product. And then we combine that with the DNA from brands, that like these characters, well-known brands, IP, characters, stories, these are nostalgic. These are stories we grew up on, characters we love, we feel emotion about. We're taking those elements and combining with your product to make these beautiful baby products that represent these characters in newfound ways. And this is what people want. This is why we come to this show, to make great product. And sometimes a great product is great toys, great brand, living together. So we're going to talk about this. You may find I don't just like licensing. I love it. This is an amazing field where you can make amazing products. So let's go forward. Okay. So why does licensing make sense for you? It doesn't make sense for everyone, but it may make sense for you for a few reasons. Combining your strengths as a product with brands that might fit with what your product works with. So working those things together, you can make products that you might not have been able to make before. Having access to a brand gives you access to new audiences and new crowds. So building a brand is extremely difficult. When you combine yourselves with a major property, a brand, you're touching into that fan base. You're touching the people who are familiar with that brand, those characters, those stories, and you can use it to propel your product and expand the reach into those new audiences. Another major reason is your buyers, your retailers, they're asking for it. They're saying, Bluey is selling really well for us. If you can get a Bluey license, we're going to buy more. That's a really good incentive. That means you can pay for that license if you can get that license and make those new products. As mentioned before, you can find and reach new audiences. You can find people who love those properties. They're going to find your product. They're going to say, oh, I've never heard about this company. They make great product. What else do they make? And discover new product lines. So you may start out thinking, I'm going to make a product. I'm going to make foam swords. I'm going to get K-pop Demon Slayers to make those foam swords. You may find there's new opportunities to say, hey, there's a whole new market for other role play, other costumes that can grow and expand my product line. So you can create new vertical businesses for yourself. What are licensors looking for? I'm not going to be shy about it. They're looking for money. It's not a big surprise. But it's not always just money. If you can just throw money to fix your solutions, then the world would be easier in some respects. But it's not always just money. They're looking for exposure. They're looking to grow their licensing business. And there's a term that gets thrown around with licensors a lot called white spaces. White spaces are essentially where they don't have the best licensees in their respective categories. They want to have licenses in all the territories in the world. They want to have all the marketplaces, all the retailers. They want to cover as many categories as possible. And they want to have the best licensee in those respective categories so they can maximize the whole program. They also want to be visible, especially when it comes to media properties, movies, TV, streaming shows. They want to have product on shelves because it shows legitimacy. It shows that if it's in retail, if you're seeing it everywhere, it means this is something you can't miss. So it adds to the legitimacy of that brand. All right. So I'm going to go through a few of the steps of the license and then go into them in a little more detail. The courtship, finding the licensors is actually sometimes harder than you expect. If you're looking for a particular brand, you got to find a person who can give you those rights. Sometimes it means knocking on a lot of doors. Sometimes it means finding the agency. So that part is actually a little bit complicated and can be difficult. Then you get, when you do finally find them and they're interested, they'll say, let's talk about a deal memo. What's a deal memo? It's basically going to lay out all the business terms. I'm going to go into that in more detail in a minute. It'll go through all the terms of what you're going to agree to from the business side. Then you have the contract. That's where I get involved. These are these 20 to 80 page beasts which have all these terms protecting the brand, what you can and cannot do. Then you have, after you get that signed contract, you're going to go through development. You got to get everything approved by the company. And then you have to, when you're ready and that's all approved by the licensor, you can launch the product. So then you'll see, how did this actually do? Did they sell? Did the consumers like them? And if it worked out well, you're going to do it all over again through a renewal. Okay, so let's go into what those initial conversations with the licensors is going to look like. They're going to ask you, what are you good at? Again, I was talking about, they're trying to find the best licensees in whatever categories they can find. They want to know, what are you good at? Are you good at hitting a certain price point? Are you good at hitting certain channels? Do you have a demographic? Are you great at social media and marketing? They want to find out what you're good at and how that fits in with their growth strategy. They wouldn't ask, what other licenses do you have? Why are they asking that? Because if you have other licenses, it shows that you understand licensing. It understands that you know what an approval process is. You know how to pay royalties. You know how to track and get royalty reports. They want to know that they're not working with someone who's brand new and understands the steps in managing a license. They're going to ask what properties you want. It doesn't always seem so simple. When I was at Marvel, there was a classic Spider-Man, a retro Spider-Man, a video game Spider-Man, several movie Spider-Mans. It's all over the place. So sometimes being specific on which properties you want will help you kind of get to the deal terms that you need. They're going to ask where you're selling, which retailers and territories you're strong in. They're going to ask, what are your projected sales? And that number is going to be very, very key because that's going to determine what your advance or guarantee is going to be. I'm going to get into that in a minute. So the questions that you should be asking the licensors are, who are their other licensees? You want to find out, who else are they partnering with? Do you have any competitors that they also have a license with? You don't want to make sure you're entering a space and then now you're competing with someone with the same license. You want to find out who are their main retailers and buyers, because that's who you also want to be selling to. If that brand and property is working well with a certain buyer, you want to be in that space too. And then very, very importantly, this legal guy again, what rights are available and what are the restrictions? You might assume that you get this brand and property and you can do whatever you agree to, but it turns out there might be restrictions. If there's a movie, they might not want the product on shelves until a certain date. If your main selling period is going to be spring and that movie comes out in December, you can't sell in spring. You lose an entire year. So knowing what you can and cannot do up front is going to have a key importance into how much you can actually return and make on that license. So what goes into this deal memo? You're going to talk about the term. Terms are usually 2 to 3 years. That's not set in stone, but that's usually what licenses typically look at. As I mentioned before, you want to look at your development timelines because you have to get these things approved. So sometimes the approval process might take 2 or 3 times longer normally just to get everything properly approved. The big thing you're going to discuss is your minimum royalty guarantee. There's a lot of different terms for this, but it's basically you're putting skin in the game. The licensor is going to say, hey, how much money can you make on this deal with the royalty given? We want you to commit to something. They don't want to give a license and have you just do nothing with it. So they're going to have this guarantee and say, you got to pay some money up front. That way we know that you're actually going to produce and earn against it. That way you have, again, it's skin in the game, and they get money up front. You're going to discuss how much you pay up front and how you're going to pay that over the course of the term. And then the royalty. The royalty is the percentage that you have to pay on your sales. Now, today we have many different types of sales. You have wholesale, you have direct-to-consumer, you have FOB. Those price points are all different. So you want to negotiate different royalty rates for those 3. You don't want to have one flat rate because the price is different. 15% on wholesale for $8 product is not the same as 15% on DTC when it's sold for $20. Your product descriptions from your side, you want to think a little bit forward-thinking, not just think about what you're making today, but what you might want to expand into. So you want to kind of be broad with the products that you're developing and the rights that you're asking for. The licensor is going to ask for narrow products. They're asking for narrow products because whatever you don't make, they want to be able to license out to someone else. And then you're going to discuss your territories, what territories you sell into. You want to think about what territories you might want to be selling to in the future, where you think there's opportunity and growth. And then you want to get into which channels you're into and where channels you might be growing into. So you want to get all this stuff in advance. I bring this up because you want to be comprehensive, because if you go back to the licensor later and say, hey, I want to add these territories, I want to add these channels, I want to add these products, what's going to happen? they're going to ask for more money. They're going to say, okay, how much is that worth to you? And they're going to ask for more. So try to get as much up front, just so you're getting everything down, and you don't have to go back to the table and negotiate. Marketing as well, they may have marketing requirements because they want you to, again, push the product and show that you have skin in the game, you're treating this property with value, and you're going to go to trade shows, market on social media, and help build the brand for the product as well. So what goes in the contract? This is the legal stuff. These are things I focus on. These contracts are massive. There's lots of problems in them, but these are things I kind of focus in on because this is what's going to affect you the most. So the definition of sales, what defines a sale is really important because you have all types of deductions and costs involved. You have shipping. So you want to make sure that the royalty, which is going to be on the sale, reflects the actual product sale, not your tariffs, not your shipping costs, not these other fees that might apply that are not actually related to the cost of the product. So defining those things importantly, understanding and knowing your business is important so you're not paying more than you should. The approval process, again, this is a speed business. You have to hit certain retailer demands. You have to hit certain seasons. If you can't get approvals done quickly enough, you're going to lose time. And you're not going to be able to hit those guarantees that you agreed to. So having a quick, seamless approval process, both where they're communicating what went wrong, what's not approved and why it's not approved, and they're turning that around in an efficient time, that helps you to produce a product faster. Compliance, again, licensors are going to care about the brand of the product. So if there's a recall, if there's a problem with the product, if there's a lot of returns, that matters to them. That hurts their brand. They don't want that to happen. So they want to make sure that you're doing proper product safety and getting your factories approved. The quarterly royalty reports, this is now a data world. So they want to get the quarterly royalty reports from you. See, what are you selling, how you're doing each quarter, which buyers, which territories, which products. They want to have that data so they also know what's working for you, and also that they can match up what you're selling with your royalties. They want to make sure that's accurate. Audit language. This didn't used to be a very audit-heavy industry, but it's getting more and more because some licensors are seeing it as a revenue source. So I look closely at the audit language to make sure that you have protections in place that you don't get audited by a licensee, and it makes it very difficult for you. I don't think there's any licensee out there who's been audited that has had a good time, that was happy with that experience. It's always a painful experience. And then just generally with the whole contract is built for type situations. This is like if you can't pay them, if there's no sales, if you have a change in ownership. Those are things they don't want to have happen during the relationship. So there's language in these agreements that kind of cover these types of scenarios. All right, so how are we going to negotiate these things? So the first question when you kind of talk about your projected sales, can you meet those minimum guarantees? This is something you have to be treated very seriously because just because you want the license doesn't mean that it's right for your business. You have to be able to afford it. So you have to ask yourself, am I hoping I get these sales, or can I guarantee these sales? So what you really need to be doing is talking to your buyers, saying, I'm talking to this licensor. If I add this brand to my portfolio, is that going to lead to more sales? And you need to check the temperature to make sure that you can sell these things. Don't get a license and then hope you can sell it. It's a big problem that a lot of new licensees enter into. What are your margins and how many units you can make? That's important because if your margin is lower than the royalty, you're not going to make money. The royalty is going to eat everything up. So you need to make sure that you're getting appropriate margin that's going to cover the total cost of units that you're making so this license makes sense for you. This is why, again, keep on saying, don't oversell just to get the license. You want to find something that fits right for you. There's a lot of big licenses out there, and they'll throw out a big number. And you don't want to overpay for something and then find out that it doesn't work for you. It's going to leave a bad taste in your mouth, and you're not going to want to do more licensing. Know who the other licensees are. Again, this is a competitive space. If someone is making similar products to you, you don't want to find out that you can't sell them to a retailer because they've already bought something similar that you can't sell them. So that's going to affect whether you can make back the royalties. Exclusivity. Realistically, you're not going to get exclusive rights for major brands. If you're a Lego, then yes, you can get exclusivity for construction toys, but it's not for everyone. But you can have an arrangement. You have an understanding with the other licensor that not to license the same property to competitors. They don't want that either, because when you're in that situation, if you're making the same product to someone else with the same characters, and you're trying to get the sales from a retailer, you're just going to undercut each other. And that means less royalties for the licensor. So they're trying to find best in class. So you're not necessarily always going to get exclusivity in agreements, but try to have an understanding that you're going to be their company in that space. So again, these are all questions Is this right for you? Can you afford it? Make sure you're not getting something that you are hoping that that's based on like hope that you can make it back over time. Make sure you can, if you talk to your buyers, talk to your audience, make sure that this is something that you think that can sell. So don't get discouraged. It's there's always a brand that's right for you. There's always a property that fits your business model, that fits your audience, that is within your budget and what you think you can afford. And we'll get into like what are the benefits here. So the best part about licensing, I've seen so many companies out there, they started with their first license, and then it works out, and they get more. They see the volume and the benefit of working with other brands to grow their portfolio of products. Growing a brand is really, really difficult. If you're a manufacturer, that's the hardest part. You're growing a brand starting from scratch. You have to cultivate an audience. Partnering up with these big brands that have big audiences, that's the secret sauce to reach more crowds and audiences and grow your portfolio. So partnering with brands, hitting different categories, hitting different demographics, it's a great way to spread out and grow how many categories, how many retailers, how many places that you can sell your product and reach. Improves your brand reputation. When you work with well-known brands, strong properties, it actually makes your company look better. If you're able to get a Disney license, it shows that your products are safe, you're able to meet all these heavy standards, you're able to sell into major retailer, it's good on your brand. That shows that major companies, major brands can trust you to work with their IP and make product based off those characters. So that helps your reputation. Again, helps you expand the retailers you sell into, helps you grow your audiences, and it's just a magnet. Once you start succeeding with licensing, it's a magnet for more licenses. Your first license is always going to be very difficult, but once you succeed, once you start showing you have a successful product, licensors start coming to you. Hey, we saw what you did with that IP. We do something similar. Can you talk about license agreements? Things will come to you. You don't have to go to other people as much. So, I kept it fast. I covered a lot. This is an opportunity in Toy Fair. Find companies, find brands to work with. It's a great opportunity to do deals, figure out ways to grow your products and brand in different ways. That's my name, Greg Pan. I work for Nolan Heimann. If you want to talk licensing, happy to discuss with anyone. Thank you again.